Cool. I think we can probably get started here. We got a fairly big agenda for the new year, so welcome all. As John put it, happy, insert here. If it's good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us at the first PowerShell OpenSSH community call of 2025. We got a great agenda today. I will post the link again in the chat here to follow along. And actually, well, since I'm the first one, I guess I'll share my screen and we can kind of get started here. Yeah, so I guess it's been a while since we've last had the community call, and a lot has kind of happened since I think it was October was our last kind of more official one. The November one I think landed on kind of a US holiday, and so a lot of us were out, and it was also the week of Ignite. But yeah, so we'll get started here. So the first thing I'm actually going to be showing off is we had a new release of a new CLI tool that we've been developing for a while now called AI Shell. This is a CLI tool designed to help connect your PowerShell and Shell instance to a variety of AI assistants. This is something that we've been working on for a while to help kind of bring assistance. We've learned a lot that using the CLI can be very daunting. The number of commands and parameters alone are in the couple thousands of different kinds of permutations per different commands. It's hard to know everything. It's hard to know exactly how to get the job done, especially for beginners to the CLI, as well as folks wanting to kind of scale out their businesses and automate their tasks. It can be challenging, and so we recognize that, and we've been working to try to figure out ways that we can make the experience a lot smoother and easier. So we've created a simple commandlet here called Start AI Shell that will bring up a side pane here to kind of be your assistant. We really like the idea of someone at your work kind of helping you along the way in the CLI, and so we've developed this user experience here, but there's an alternate way that I'll talk about as well. We have a number of AI agents that we call them, which are different forms of AI assistants. In the CLI, you can run, of course, thousands and thousands of PowerShell commands. You can run native commands. You can run all sorts of different things. And so it's not really super feasible to create a singular AI model to rule them all, so to speak. And so we wanted to make this platform extensible so that, you can build agents for modules that you build out. You can build an AI assistant based, specifically on data that your company has built out for things, and different kind of segments of areas. And so there's two agents that we've developed, the OpenAI GPT agent and then the Azure agent, which it connects you to the Copilot in Azure. I'll first start with the OpenAI one. This is a very basic agent that has no specific kind of training or anything. All you have to do is configure it with a Azure OpenAI instance or a public OpenAI key. I'll drop lots of links to kind of walk you through how to do that in a moment here. But this is a very similar experience that you'd get from just opening up ChatGPT in the same window. It's generic. It definitely has, it may have some flaws, but it can get the job done for a lot of more widespread commands and things like that. So how do I can ask questions like, what are the top 10 most CPU intensive processes? So this will generate oh, well, it thinks I'm running a VM on my Mac, so it thinks I am on Mac. How do I do this on Windows? There we go. So I'm able to get more PowerShell commands here and stuff. So, but a key difference between this that we're really focused on is the integration with PowerShell here. So I can run these chat commands to help me interact with the code here. And so I can run a command called code post, and it will post the commands here directly into my PowerShell window, and so I can easily run them. I don't have to copy and paste. I don't have to do a lot of different things that way. So it's a lot easier and stuff. But a big experience is taking the output and kind of acting upon it, doing some more testing and stuff with it. So see here I have this Olama app process that's running here. I don't really need that right now, so I'm gonna up arrow key. I'm gonna say, hey, invoke AI shell, help me stop the Olama app process. It's going to send this data now to the sidecar here and walk me through how to do that. And you can see here it grabbed the correct ID here, and so it knows, okay, yeah, I can do it this way. I can go back code post. I can also run a hotkey command DD to just simply do it that way, and now I can stop the process. I can then go up and check, and yep, it looks like it's gone. So that's kind of some of the flow that we are working on for AI Shell to make it a lot more integrated with your PowerShell session. One last thing that I'll call out too is how we handle errors, and so I'll just I'll just totally mess up a path here, something like this, where it's not going to run obviously, and so it doesn't recognize that, and then you see I have, of course, an error in the path here. So there's another commandlet that this module has, which is called resolve-error. This will send the last error that you just had to the sidecar, whichever agent you have, and so it can ingest the error object that was generated from the error and then help you resolve it this way. So this is a pretty simple example, but it can be helpful to at least try to debug and see things if the error message is not super descriptive. So yeah, that's kind of some of the integration pieces. The other big piece of this tool is the Azure agent. So if you're familiar with the Copilot in Azure, this is the same Copilot that we're using here to help you generate Azure CLI and Azure PowerShell commands right here in your CLI. So what I can do is I can actually switch over and say, hey, at Azure, I'm going to switch over my agent here and say, okay, yeah, it looks like I'm registered. All you have to do is be logged into Azure with Azure CLI. We have Azure PowerShell coming, and have access to this Copilot, which should be on for most folks. And so now I can just ask questions. How do I create a resource group and an App Insights instance? So this Copilot is a lot more scoped to Azure commands, Azure CLI, Azure PowerShell, and also general Azure knowledge. So you can ask more broad questions about Azure resources. You can ask more broad questions about what end-to-end Azure scenarios. But we're really trying to focus on Azure CLI, Azure PowerShell command generation. So here's a great example. Let's create a resource group. Let's create an applications insights instance. And so this is a multi-step process here. It kind of said, hey, well, look, there's a bunch of placeholders that I have going that I have to fill out. Resource group name, location, app name, another location here. One unique thing about this experience is we recognize, these placeholder values and can help walk you through how to fix them. So I'm going to run /replace here, and it will walk me through each of these parameters to help me get to a state where I can actually run these commands much more easily. So you can see, okay, resource group name, I'm going to say test RG community call. And then here is another great thing that we've implemented, which for particular parameters like location or SKUs or existing resource groups, we try to populate, or we will populate the available values here. So for location, I can just kind of use, this is the same predictive intelligence that you may be familiar with PowerShell. And so we can kind of go through here and I can say, okay, well, let's see what kind of Europe ones I want to do. So let's do North Europe, for example. We also try to be smart where we recognize what pattern you were kind of using it previously. And so we can say, okay, well, maybe you want to do test application insights community for the name of the app name. So and then there we go. We now have more explicit commands and stuff to run here. I can use the same experience that I was showing off previously, where I can go Control DD. I'll post this one. Step one is put in here. I'll hit enter here. It will create me a resource group, and I
Oh
have
yeah, it's fine.
not logged in there. But you can imagine this will
You just have
run,
to turn it. Yeah.
I think, and then but one thing you'll notice is we have the next command in your predictive IntelliSense. So it will kind of walk you through step one, step two, and so on and so forth. I just didn't log in correctly here, so that's okay though. But yeah, that's a little bit about AI Shell. We have lots of documentation and blogs posted. Um, of course, we're completely open source, so you can take a look at the source code. We have documentation on how to create agents, and we recently just published documentation on how to deploy an Azure OpenAI instance extremely easily with a Bicep file that we've developed. So you can deploy your own models and play around with that. But yeah, I'll drop all these links in the chat, and yeah, excited for everyone to try it. We very early, we're still in a public preview, so we're definitely changing a lot of things, but we'd love your guys' opinions on this tool, how we can make it better for you, and how we can improve it in the future here. So yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Let me post all the links in the chat, and then I will pass it over to Anam to talk about the PSResourceGet release. Anam, are you ready
Yeah,
to chat about it?
yeah. Alrighty, let me share my screen. Hey everyone, so we recently GA'd PSResourceGet version 1.10, and this release included some bug fixes for repositories like Artifactory and Azure DevOps, where you may have PS galleries and upstream feed. So we just wanted to ensure that that end-to-end experience is as seamless as possible, and that also the error messages PSResourceGet gives is clear about whether an error is happening in the upstream feed or in your main feed. This release also included some bug fixes for container registry repositories, so there's increased publishing support, and we've also made sure that when you get a package from the container registry repository, the metadata and the dependencies information you get is consistent with what you'd get if that package was coming from PS Gallery. Yeah, and then one of our goals for container registry repositories is that first-party teams like AZ can publish their modules, which are big and they have a lot of dependencies and a lot of folks rely on them. So they can publish those AZ modules to Microsoft Artifact Registry, or MAR. And MAR is a public repository and it's a trusted source of Microsoft published modules. So you can come on here and you can find the AZ module because the AZ team has started onboarding to MAR. So I've already kind of searched in here and I can see that the AZ compute module is here. And then I can use PSResourceGet to find that package from MAR. So I found AZ compute. I can see that there is dependency on AZ accounts. And then I can also install from the MAR registry repository. And this will also go and so we'll get AZ compute, and then we should also get AZ accounts, which is the dependency, if I can spell that. So we've got AZ accounts as well. So this basically integration with PSResourceGet allows people to get AZ and other modules coming soon in an efficient and reliable way from a Microsoft trusted source. Yeah. And that is my demo. Oh, 1 second, let me go back. I'm sorry. I did. You are right, I did do that. I'm sorry. Let me download it from, this is what I get for just doing a command that was already loaded in. But let me get it from MAR. Thank you for catching that. It's already installed at this point. Let me kill that. Install. Sorry, that's taking a second. Sorry, it's taking a second. Okay, there we go. So we can install it from MAR. And then you can see that it installed it. And then it should also have installed the dependency. Yep, for AZ accounts. Yeah, and that's my demo.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Autumn.
Mhm.
I'm trying to answer every question I got in the chat, but feel free to re-ask questions if I didn't answer any about the AI shell experience, or feel free to put questions or even raise your hands during the call. Let's see, what is next? Okay, PS Gallery updates. I know this was also a question that Justin brought up to Aditya and Amber. Are you both here to maybe address this, or Aditya, I
Yep.
think I see you.
Yes. So I'd like to talk about some gallery updates, specifically about the CDN. So as most of you might know, PowerShell Gallery used to use Edge.io as their CDN provider. And recently they declared bankruptcy, and they started going offline since yesterday. So we moved to a different provider. And over the last week, we did the work of migrating it to a different provider. And there were some hiccups while migrating over the weekend, and hence there were some issues that were found. But I would like to confirm that we have completed the migration to the new provider, and all of the traffic is serviced by the new provider, though the URLs are still the same. So I do not expect any updates to any firewall rules or anything to allow any new URLs through. But the way we did the migration was we started sending 20% of the traffic to the new CDN provider on Friday. That's why the issues that were found were intermittent, because Edge.io was still servicing 80% of the requests. And once we found the issues, we fixed them, and then eventually we rolled out 200% to the new provider. And now everything is being serviced to it. We don't see any issues on our end. But if you find any issues for getting packages, please open an issue on the gallery repo. That's it.
Before you
Yes.
finish, do you want to quickly talk about the 7.6 preview?
Yes. So the 7.6 preview happened today or yesterday. So 7.6 preview 2 came out. And the reason it's called preview 2 is we tried to release a preview 1 in December, and we had some unrecoverable issues for publishing the packages. So, but we had already pushed a tag to upstream for preview 1. And to keep the history clean, we decided to move on to preview 2 and released a preview 2 yesterday. And that is still based on .NET 9, the latest version of it, and has a bunch of changes that were not included since the last preview 7.5. So we are expecting a 7.50 release soon. I don't have a date yet, but it should come out soon.
Awesome. Okay, thanks Aditya for the updates on the gallery and the release. Let's see. What do we have next? Or actually, on the preview 2, I know Justin was working on some stuff. Did you want to add anything, Justin, to what's been going on? Or I know you've been working hard on the releases, so.
Oh yeah, there is a small mistake during the release. The metadata index.json was for the release tag was what it's supposed to point to the latest stable release, but I mistakenly changed it to point to the current release I was doing, which is to preview point two, and that PR is out right now to fix that. So if anyone's trying to install the latest stable, might run into issues there.
Cool. Thank you, Justin. All right, I'm gonna pass it over to Tess to talk about some OpenSSH folder permission issues that we've been working to fix. Do you wanna, Tess, are you here?
Yep. Talk about it.
Cool. Take it away.
Alrighty. So for the folder permissions issue that first started happening after the October Windows update, we've been working to address that. The changes are slated to be available in a future Windows update starting at the end of February for most OS versions, and some will be in a mid-March update for some older Windows Server versions. So we've changed the strict permissions check on the program data SSH folder that was causing the SSH server service to not start in version 9.4, and that's replaced with a logging message that will include the recommended permissions for the folder, but will not actually prohibit the startup, and that message will be logged in Event Viewer. Another issue that I did want to highlight from the October Windows update as well relates specifically to Windows Server 2019, including Azure Marketplace images for Windows Server 2019. These images come pre-installed with the OpenSSH client updated to the most recent version 9.5. And then if the OpenSSH server is installed afterwards, it's the older version, 7.7. And because there's some overlap between the OpenSSH client and OpenSSH server components, the OpenSSH server won't start. So check for any pending updates on the machine after the OpenSSH server is installed. And once you apply the pending Windows updates, the OpenSSH server should be updated to the most recent version, and the service will be able to start. It's only applicable on Windows Server 2019 due to some underlying Windows update mechanisms for features on demand like OpenSSH, but just wanted to highlight that in case anyone's run into that. Yeah, so that's the updates from the OpenSSH side. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you, Tess.
I just saw in chat a question on OpenSSH. Feel free to put it in the chat if you, and I can try to answer it async as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely have time to. We'll have questions in the chat, and we will have opportunities at the end to come off to ask questions verbally too. But since we still are got a big agenda, we'll just kind of keep going and then go through it that way. Who's next? Andy, are you here to maybe give a bit of a trailer comment on the Bicep DSC work that you've been doing?
I am. I can give you one better, actually. In fact, I'm going to cover two quick topics. The first is a short one. We are working on a PowerShell extension release. A pre-release should be out really shortly, followed by a stable release within the next week or so. Honestly, we're most excited just because this will actually have the fix for Sierra causing assembly conflicts for who knows how many people, especially using PowerShell 5.1. We removed an entire dependency just to get rid of conflicts. So that was nice. Big shout out to Justin for all of his help with that. So that'll be out. But to some fun stuff, I mean, that's fun, but to even more fun stuff, we've been working on like a prototype to actually use Bicep to write your DSC configurations. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show just a very short little trailer of what that kind of looks like, which is exciting because it is really quite simple. So let me see, share. Oh no, requesting allow. Okay, we're going to hope that this works. I think I had to reinstall Teams. Is the monitor with a big black terminal sharing? Great. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I can see it.
So I think most people in this call are probably familiar with DSC itself. Specifically, I'm talking about DSC v3, the new project written in Rust that has like PowerShell adapter, and like is the next project of DSC. And right now you can write YAML and you can write JSON, and under the covers it essentially transforms those and understands them as ARM. And so we had this thought of like, well, Bicep is a whole language meant for allowing you to write ARM resources in this much simpler declarative language designed for it called Bicep that then also emits ARM. So we tried it out actually. We were like, could we write our DSC resources as Bicep code and then have the ARM that Bicep emits actually work in DSC? And the answer was mostly yes. In fact, with a developer build of DSC that Steve just got a change into for me, I can actually use Bicep with like one small little change to their code to emit the correct schema, which that is a whole, this is not like something we can ship. That is I got it working by hard coding, change the schema over here, but we have to work out like, oh, what's this going to look like as a file? What are we actually going to do to productize this? But for testing and demo purposes, check this out. Over on this screen here, I have a very simple Bicep file that might look really familiar if you've written like YAML for DSC. I'm saying, hey, use the PowerShell adapter resource called Microsoft.Windows Windows PowerShell. Right now, Bicep is actually saying, by the way, I don't know about that resource, but I'll let you use it. It doesn't know because it's a DSC resource, not an ARM resource. One of the things is like, in the future when we make this a product. But yeah, it's just, let's run this PS script with a few properties on it. I run this through the Bicep CLI. In my case, I'm just using VS Code to click their CLI button, but it also, that command looks like this with really terrible text. I'm going to try to highlight it. Maybe that's a little bit better. My developer build of Bicep, run the build command, pass it the Bicep file that I wrote. And once it does that, I actually get a JSON file spat out, which is an ARM template that DSC understands right now. So I got to write that Bicep. I get this JSON, and this was so great that with like this dev build, I've got working. So let me run the git command from that. So I'm going to run my dev build of DSC. I'm so sorry about these colors. Dev build of DSC with debug logging, config git, here's the file that I gave you, which is the JSON from the Bicep. So like right now it's, build it over here, send it over here. We're talking about like, what's that user experience actually like? Will DSC just understand a Bicep file? We don't know. We want people who are using this to tell us. But if I run this, minus the fact that my terminal's a little wonky, and so we got some extra ASCII input over there. Yeah, it actually works. If I scroll up a little bit, you can see that it went ahead and started the Windows PowerShell command, invoked that command, ran my little script, that little embedded script from the file, passed it all the way through. Sure enough, got my output right here, which was wanted to run the script with result get, which if we go way back, even though it's ugly, the get script, if you run it, is going to return the result get. There's and new lines and whatnot. That ignore the new lines and all the quoting issues and stuff. But yeah, as a trailer, like this works. We're really excited to be working on this with people. We're excited to get feedback. We want to actually turn this into something usable soonish. But that's what I had to share.
Cool. Thank you, Andy. Keep losing the agenda. What's the next thing? It is doc update. I know, Mikey, are you here to talk about this? Otherwise, I think Mike Robbins is here.
Yes.
Cool. You want to take it away, Mike?
Yeah, let me share my screen real quick. Okay, we've got a few docs updates for PowerShell. One is we have a new article for about type conversion, and this tells you how and when PowerShell performs type conversions. We've also got a new article on about comments, and to me this one's really good. And this was actually, so both of these were community contributions. There was a lot of work done on the documentation for the PS script analyzer rules. And if you want to know about the specific updates, you can take a look at what's new in the PowerShell docs, this article. And I'll tell you what I'll do. So I've just posted links in the chat for everything that I'm talking about. So for Azure, and that was, looks like that was it for the PowerShell docs updates. For Azure PowerShell, we published a new version, so all the corresponding documentation for Azure PowerShell 13.1. We also finally archived all the Azure RM documentation. So if you're looking for that documentation, you can go to the AZ PowerShell module page. You can go to previous versions, and you'll end up on our previous versions, and then just go to Azure PowerShell. So all the documentation is still there just in case you need it. I also wanted to mention about the upcoming MFA requirements, and I know that Damian Caro is going to speak about this here in a second, but I also put the link to this document in the chat just to be aware of it. And that's it for the documentation update.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. And I think that's a good segue to the MFA. Damian, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the MFA enforcements coming up?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everyone that MFA enforcement is in place in the portal. You may have already seen it. You are required to use MFA unless you've asked for an extension. We are preparing for applying the same requirement for the command line tools, so Azure CLI, Azure PowerShell, and other SDKs. We know some of the flows, and you probably want to be aware of that. Some of the flows are not going to be functional when MFA is enforced. The first one we have that I can mention is ROPC. So if you're using a username and password authentication with Azure CLI or Azure PowerShell, those commands will not work. You may use them because you have an account in Active Directory that is synchronized to Azure AD, and you're using that identity in Azure AD or Entra ID now to be authenticating against Azure. The recommendation is to move towards managed identity, service principals, those kinds of identities geared for automation purposes. And I'm going to drop in the chat one of the articles that describe all those different flows and how to prepare properly for that. But we wanted to remind everyone that this is coming, and if you have any of your flows using one of those user accounts, you want to really think how to migrate to service principals or manage identities. That's it. That's it from that front.
Cool. Thank you, Damian. I think that brings us to the conclusion of our core agenda. I believe we addressed I'm looking at the GitHub issue now. I believe we addressed all the gallery things. Feel free if there was still open questions around the gallery stuff, feel free to post it in the chat or raise a hand. Otherwise, look to chat about WebSockets and PowerShell. Before we get to demos, I just want to address the questions. I'd love feedback from Steve and Sean on this X post. Okay, I haven't taken a look at this yet. Yeah, maybe Steve, do you see the X post in the GitHub issue? I haven't. I'm reading it now, but
Sorry, King. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
so the someone in the GitHub in the GitHub page there was a discussion and linked there. So maybe I'll give you time to take a look at that and we can address that.
You're talking about the discussion for the agenda?
Yeah, I'll throw it in the chat again.
All right. No, I got it. I forgot to look there.
So yeah, well,
Okay, let me. I'm opening the.
Well, you can take a look at it and then we can address it there. And if there's any more comments, we can do it after. I know. So James, did you want to do a quick 5-minute demo or something on the WebSockets and PowerShell? Are you here?
I could do a quick song and dance. I luckily had my other meeting move back, so if you want to, give me some screen sharing rights, and I will kick off some fun shows.
Sure. Let me figure out the screen sharing thing again.
No worries. I could also do the virtual camera thing, but I've generally had complaints that that's not the easiest thing to read for text.
Make a presenter. Okay, you should be able to screen share. So yeah, if you wanna show off a 5-minute demo or something, let's.
So we're starting the
How much are
clock.
we-
Okay. So
No,
quick
go for it.
1,000-foot version. WebSockets are part of the web standards. They are a way to send either binary data or JSON rapidly back and forth over HTTP. They're great. One wonderful way for PowerShell people to think of them is they're an object pipeline that is web friendly. Okay. This new social media network called Blue Sky, they happen to have a WebSocket of everything going on, which gave me the inspiration to build a little WebSocket module, which you can literally just find on the gallery called WebSocket. I'm getting less creative in naming as I get older, or more CO campy, you tell me. So let's go ahead and get help and look at some examples, and let's pick out a fun one. That has all the tags and posts. This one has all the links. I'm looking for one that just has all the emoji. I believe that's it. So we're going to go basically ask the internet how it's feeling, get a real object pipeline back of that, and these are just the emoji real time from the internet, from everybody that is posting. And I'm going to Control C this for a second because, we love PowerShell background jobs. I'm going to go look at that background job on our receive job keep. And these are, in fact, all of the different references that I've gotten. I think I've got some fun examples going back here. So I've done a bit of ad hoc demos last night. Yeah, so let's go ahead and change that to 4. So of all the posts that we've been watching, these are the top 10 links. I'm just going to break down this pipeline here. We're getting our job. We're receiving job and keeping results. We're getting all of the external URIs as a URI. We're grouping on DNS safe host. And we're sorting on count and picking out the first 10. So lots of memes, a little bit of YouTube, a little bit of liver, more YouTube, Buffly, links to Twitter, ironically, the Guardian YouTube, and whatever tver.jp and lts.fr. Okay? Again, this is real-time data, a real-time object pipeline of all of human thought. So that's fun. Also, it opens up whole new wonderful territory for us as PowerShell developers to, well, flex our data scientist muscles, start to get into the game of social media automation again, and do fun and possibly profitable things. So that's cool, but I've got one more bonus point for you. This is up as a gist. This is not particularly WebSocket related, but I'm going to let a picture speak 1,000 words here. So I'm going to put a breakpoint here. This is an event-driven microservice built on top of PowerShell. We're picking a random port. We're creating a listener. We're starting to listen in the thread job. Excuse me. And we're generating an event for every request in. And outside of that job, we're just going through our event queue, and we're going to be able to actually debug our web request. So I hit F5, got a new server up. I click. Demo gods be kind. There you are. Okay. I take out my breakpoint because we want to actually demonstrate speed as well. But let's go ahead and click this a few more times. And look at those beautifully fast response times I'm getting back just from serving a random number on top of PowerShell. And again, this is a debuggable, purely event-driven web server, plus, a WebSocket with all of human thought coursing through it. Questions, comments, feedback, everybody's noses stop bleeding or just start bleeding. I think I'm going to go back to the emoji example for a second, just because that's a fun one, and see if anybody is engaging with it. Too many examples here. That's better. Oh, it also does cache the job if you reuse the same URI, which is why we just saw all of those emoji fly by because they were cached. So yeah, PowerShell web development is about to get a lot more fun, partially because, you know, high efficiency servers, but also because WebSockets finally give us this, you know, dare I say, holy grail that we've been looking for in PowerShell and web for all these years, where we can have high throughput communication between a web server and a PowerShell client. So really exciting times, really exciting discovery. Very boring module name, but easy to remember. So yeah, that's the quick news fit to print on PowerShell WebSockets and a little bit on PowerShell microservices in pure event-driven form. So
Cool.
questions, comments? Everybody just enjoying the random emoji as they fly by?
We should just do any questions in the chat. I think it'll be easier.
Sounds good. I'm going to stop sharing in 3, 2, 1. Show's over, folks. Don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Actually,
Thanks,
I should have
James.
done a Porky Pig joke there. But all right.
Very
You're
cool.
welcome.
I did want to address, I did want to give Ryan, I know you said you kind of had a big documentation topic you'd like feedback on. Was there anything you wanted to add in this forum here, or any particular questions? Unfortunately, I don't think Sean is here, but we can follow up too if it's a documentation issue that you're working on.
Yeah, apologies. I was trying to find my conversation and mute button. I'm on my phone. And yeah, it was really just more around, you know, David Fowler did an amazing dig into the, I think it's the Aspire documentation. And I posted a link to my reply on the Twitter/X thread. But he did an amazing job on, you know, just finding gaps in the documentation. And he was using the OpenAI, I think it's OpenAI ChatGPT, I think is all he's using. And so it'd be really interesting to see, you know, really kind of what, if there would be any way to kind of tackle that same idea with like the PowerShell documentation and seeing where are gaps, where can we expand more, where can we add more details? Because I'm very much so detail oriented and sometimes I've missed some. And so, you know, it's just one of those, I'd be curious to see if that could be done with the PowerShell documentation as well.
Yeah, let me. So I just took a look there. Thanks, Ryan, for bringing this up. And just so everyone knows, like, honestly, I'm not on X at all these days for reasons. But I'll make sure the next time I sync with the doc folks, this would include like Sean, Mike, and Mikey. We'll evaluate this. I took a look at it and was like, hey, that's actually pretty cool. It might not be that hard to maybe get working. So I appreciate you bringing this to our attention.
Yeah, no problem.
Related
I'm glad
note.
to do so. Go ahead, James. Sorry.
Oh, just Steven, you mentioned you're not an X. I've seen other Stevens show up on Blue Sky. Do you have a Blue Sky account?
If the community tells me that there's a good portion on some other forum or social network where I can give out information, put it in a chat. I'm at this point open to trying something else.
Yeah, there are a
I'm not on
number
Blue
of
Sky right
PowerShell
now,
people
so.
on Blue Sky, so you should join.
All right, maybe I'll give it a try.
There's a great PowerShell starter pack. It's got a few hundred people in it and a PowerShell feed. So, big fan.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan, for bringing up that documentation stuff. Definitely want to take a look too. Any other topics, demos, questions from anyone? I'll pause for a moment to let things stew. Otherwise, we can end a little early as well. Marvin, I think I see your hand up.
Yeah, so I just was trying to get some clarification on this the OpenSSH stuff. So obviously we're installing this, and the servers obviously don't have access to the internet. So when we originally did this install, we had to do this through the we had to get the binary off of the features on demand ISO, and I created like a chocolatey package to do the installation. But now it sounds like it's coming and it's a part of the OS and updatable via Windows Update. So I'm trying to determine what the best route is to actually convert to that. Because we're on the long-term servicing version of Server 2019, so it no matter what I do, it's never gonna. If I do install optional features, it's not gonna be there. And then I even noticed that when we did some Server 2022 stuff, you had to have internet to get the binary as well. So we're kind of in the same boat here. It looks like if we just install it into the correct directory, then Windows Update will start updating it. Is that accurate? Can't imagine that would work, but
I'll probably ask Tess if you have any insights on the Windows Update. I'm not too familiar yet on the Windows Update stuff for
yeah.
SSH. We could also follow up offline too if we're uncertain. I know these are newer scenarios.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. I'll consult the docs and see if I missed something, or maybe something's got updated since then. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, feel free to if there was stuff to add, Tess. I know I saw you off for a moment there, but I think.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I guess I'm not totally familiar with like the offline updates. So if you're not doing any Windows updates for any other components online, then there would have to be a different mechanism for you to get the OpenSSH updates.
Yeah, I mean, essentially patches come through SCCM. You know what I mean? So.
Okay, so then I would think it would be the same for OpenSSH, and you'd still have to take the updated server binaries or OpenSSH binaries and get them onto the machine.
Yeah, I think we looked. I don't think we saw nothing come down from SCCM, but I'll take another look at it. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you, Tess. Thank you, Marvin. There's a couple other still questions in the chat, so I'll let folks answer there. If there's no other questions, we can wrap up a little early then. I will call out that as far as other community stuff going on, there is the PowerShell Summit North America schedule that got posted, I think, a week or two ago. So definitely take a look at that. And PS ConfU is in June. I don't think they've announced yet the exact schedule, but it's a little further out, so I'm sure we'll see it soon. But yeah, fantastic. It looks like we're getting folks on Blue Sky. So we can start there. Thank you, John, for posting the schedule of the PowerShell Summit. And yeah. Last thing, because I see it in the chat, whatever happened to the concept of PowerShell pipelines and native apps using pseudo terminals? I believe we're still working on it. There's a couple partner works that we're kind of relying on, but Patrick on our team is working on it, and so hopefully we can make some progress in that area. So. No ETAs yet on that, but it's still scheduled. But yeah, cool. Well, I think that kind of wraps things up for the PowerShell community call. Thank you everyone so much for coming for the first one of 2025. We're excited to be back on the normal cadence. We'll see you next month, third Thursday of the month, 9:30 a.m. For February. I don't know what that date is offhand, but we'll count on the calendar later. So the recording will be up soon, and yeah, thank you everyone for joining.